A very good morning, and we are back with euro dollar. So euro dollar has moved further in towards the downside beautifully, pretty much as expected. After seeing that ascending corrective price action in towards the highs yesterday, we did in fact see that correction downwards. We saw that break of that bearish candle's low, which caused that change of character in towards downside. We saw a pullback in towards supply, and then we saw that further sell-off in towards the downside, pretty much exactly in towards that area of 4-hour demand, which we mentioned over here, which is also situated within that daily area. So let's just go in towards the daily real quick. So that daily area is this sell for that massive buy in towards the highs where demand lies. So for now, that is why we're currently seeing a reaction to this area of demand. Overall here on the 4-hour now, the overall swing structure has now also flipped bearish. So this was the low and this was your high. So that structure has now flipped bearish, meaning that we are now ready to continue down lower, in my opinion. So for today, what am I looking for? Well, we need the market to kind of like, let's say, calibrate a little bit, because of obviously we've seen that massive impulse in towards the downside. Do I just randomly want to start selling again, or do I randomly want to start buying again? Well, no, pretty much not. So at this point in time, what I now understand is that we have the supply located over here. So this is your main area of supply, which we want to be shorting from if the market does in fact pull back in towards there. However, with the overall news that came out, it could very likely just be that your dollar continues moving down lower. So I'm not randomly just going to start buying here. I'm not randomly just going to start selling here. No, I'm going to be waiting for your dollar to make a little bit more development overall in price, because we could just continue down a little bit lower, and then I'll just wait for the structure overall to shift in towards bullish structure, and then I'll be longing it back in towards that area of supply. Let's say we do in fact continue, I won't yet be looking for sales, only if we pull back in towards that area of supply, or if we see kind of like a new structure formed, then we could look for some new sells. But at this point in time, after a massive impulse, I'm not really looking to sell the market, also with price being inside this area of demand. Now going in towards the daily real quick, I just want to show you guys the beauty of what has happened. So we've now seen a close below that internal low here on the daily time frame. So obviously we've had that daily internal bullish structure for quite some time now, and we've now flipped bearish officially. So I'm now looking for that further downside continuation, and I do expect in the very near future 1.04 to get hit. So that's what I'm looking for on euro dollar. Now moving on in towards the dollar index. So the dollar index did exactly what we wanted yesterday. Very beautiful to see overall that rangy price action before CPI news. As you can see, we were just moving sideways. Then what happened? We took the range low. So then what is likely to happen? We are going to take the range high. So this is a principle that you can always apply when range trading. It is very likely that you'll see the market range, take out the low, and then move it in towards the highs. Or if it first takes out the high, then it will move back down in towards the lows. Another example of this was over here, where we, for example, had first the high of the range get taken out, and then we came back down in towards the low of the range. Obviously, it then continued to consolidate. But if there is a lot of bullish momentum within that market, then you can expect something more like this. So that's the dollar index. Now the dollar index has its demand zone pretty much just inside here, inside of this area of consolidation, with it refined obviously to the last bearish candle before that big buy. So what I do expect is some further downside before continuing up higher, but we have reached an area of daily supply, so that's something that we have to take into account. So we've now moved in towards this overall buy before the big sell-off in towards the downside, so we could see some, let's say, slowdown within this area of the market. However, I'm not going to say, okay, from this point onwards, we're just going to start selling off, because if we look at the overall 4-hour time frame, then obviously there is still some move, or there's still some movement to be made a little bit higher, for example, in towards this imbalanced candle over here, this doji candle. So then if we look at that, okay, there is still quite some room for it to move up. So we could just continue up higher, or if we pull back down, then there will be some longing opportunities on the dollar index. So what I'm doing is I'm just waiting to see, okay, is the dollar going to pull back in towards here? Then we go long on the dollar. Otherwise, if it just continues up, it could. And then if it reaches that area of supply, then I'll be looking for a short on the dollar. So that's the dollar index for you. Now moving on in towards Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar also moved beautifully in towards the downside. Obviously, we were looking for that further downside yesterday, as we did in fact see a change of character yesterday. So we were expecting for the downside. Now the 50-minute was really saying it all. Obviously yesterday what I mentioned was that we had that liquidation over here. So we took the liquidity high over there. So first of all, we had that area of consolidation where liquidity lay above, and we also had this descending trend line where liquidity lay above. So then what happens? We grab the liquidity, boom, straight away V-shaped reversal in towards the downside. We broke the lows over here and saw a candle close below it, and then the market just grabbed the liquidity which was resting above this trend line, pulled back in towards this area of supply, and then from there just sold off beautifully in towards the downside. So yeah, pretty much expected move here on Aussie dollar. Very nice to see. For the rest of today, what are we expecting? Well, I'm expecting for the downside. Yeah, I mean, we've already pulled back a little bit higher than, for example, euro dollar. So this area of demand over here just got broken through very rapidly, and it could be that we are now going to sell off further from this area of previous demand, which is now kind of your supply zone. This is something I'm still testing, that previous demand zones just become supply. So we're either going to be selling off, in my opinion, from here or from here. So look for shorts from zone number 1 or look for shorts from zone number 2, whatever fits your entry criteria, then on the lower time frame. Obviously, we've now flipped bearish again after breaking this low over here. So we've got a BOS, and I'm now looking for that downside continuation very, very soon. So that's Aussie dollar for you. Moving on in towards NZDUSD, or pound dollar, excuse me. So GBPUSD, what are we expecting over here? So GBPUSD moved further in towards downside. Obviously, I was looking for that further downside already the entire week. Yeah, I mean, as we can see, every single time the high got broken, retracement, retracement, retracement. So there wasn't a lot of bullish momentum at all, but just needed to spike out even more stop losses before reversing in towards the downside. So this morning we have seen a continuation of the pound against the dollar due to bad news for the pound. Let me just check. It was CPI news as well. So good CPI news for the dollar, bad CPI news today for the pound, meaning extra bearish confluence overall for pound dollar. So yeah, I mean, we overall just pull back in towards this buy before the sell. What happened? We tap in and then we just continue down lower. So for pound dollar, definitely expecting further downside price or in price overall here on the daily time frame as well, to continue that overall daily trend, which is still bearish all the way from that high in towards this low. And also the 4 hour being bearish swing structure wise. If we look at the 4 hour, this is your swing high, this is your swing low. Price has pulled back in towards, let's see, discount, yes. So in towards that 50% mark. And is now ready to continue down lower and create a new lower low. So if you're looking to enter on pound dollar, just wait for a retracement back up in towards this supply zone. Maybe the next candle will wick inside of there and then just continue down lower towards fresh areas of 4 hour demand, which I don't really see. So in that aspect, if you don't really see that, just focus on targeting swing lows in overall price. So looking at the daily, I'll just be targeting kind of like these lows over here at around 1.25. So that's it for pound dollar, expecting further downside. Now going in towards NZDUSD as well. So NZDUSD was an absolute beauty yesterday, not gonna lie. If we overall look at the 4 hour time frame, what happened over there? So obviously we know that in yesterday's market outlook we discussed, okay, NZDUSD is bearish from this high in towards this low, so we're looking for a short. Price pulled back in towards this supply zone, then started moving down lower. It reacted to this imbalance perfectly back up in towards this other zone which we had drawn out, and then from there we just sold off in towards the downside. Now price is stopping inside this other area of demand, and from there we've started to pull back in towards the highs. So what are we looking for today? Well, I'm still looking for further downside. If we pull back in towards this zone over here, I will be looking for a further short on NZDUSD. Yeah, so just playing that for the downside movement. Going in towards the 15, there's not a lot what we can say over here. Obviously, we've kind of flipped, let's say, internally bullish for now by breaking the highs. So we kind of got like this impulse down, pull back, impulse down, and then we've started to see some range between this high and this low. And now what I'm waiting for pretty much to happen is just yeah, something like this to happen. So yeah, just waiting for structure to pull back in towards that 4 hour area of supply. If it does, I will be looking for shorts. Otherwise, what could happen is that we already on the lower time frame see an early shift in overall market. So maybe just something like this will happen, and then I'll also be happy to look for further downside on this pair. So yeah, expecting for the downside from NZDUSD. Now going in towards gold. Gold also moved beautifully yesterday, guys. As we can see, we pulled up into that area of supply exactly with the wick, and then from there we sold off in towards daily demand. So looking for a slowdown on gold very soon once we reach this area of 4-hour demand. So waiting for around 1986 to get hit before reversing back in towards the highs and taking a potential long trade on gold overall. So if we look at the daily as well, what you can then clearly see is a lot of liquidity being built up below these lows. Then what happened, we tap in towards this area of daily demand. So yeah, some beautiful price action here on gold overall. Going in towards the 4 hour as well, we've finally taken all the liquidity which was resting below this trend line. And you see it time and time again. We had this descending trend line in towards the downside. What happens? We grab the liquidity and then we start selling off. Now we had this ascending trend line in towards the upside. We grab the liquidity, so I'm now expecting a reversal in towards the highs very soon, with pretty much this buy before the sell over here being my target. So thank you all for tuning in today for today's market outlook. Wish you all a fantastic day, and we will speak soon. Thanks.